Can you feel the brand new day? Can you feel the brand new day? Now, that is my current mood forever.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. How are you doing, Ashley?
Girl, I'm definitely better than I was last week. I can say that I still feel a little bit of some election hangover,
Girl.
for
Yes.
sure. But my spirit is full at the moment and we've been lifted and we
Amen,
will
sister.
continue to keep those vibes going.
Uh, Absolutely. I just have to say that, like I said, that's my current mood forever. There's some things that want to keep me down, but I'm keeping my eyes on the prize, okay?
Yes. Yes. Not today, Satan. Not
Not
today.
today. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, hello everyone. Welcome to Recapping with Delora.
And Ashley.
Oh man, what a week it's been. And again, we cannot escape the elephant in the room, and that is 2020, election 2020, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And with that is our first hot topic of this week. Miss Eva Longoria. Okay, we know her as actress, director, producer, mom, wife, overall boss.
Yep.
She has recently gotten political in recent years, campaigning openly for the Biden-Harris ticket, specifically speaking out to the Latina and Latino community, or Latinx, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And
she even made an appearance at the Democratic convention, right? Wasn't she?
Exactly. She was one of the MCs. Thank you. I actually had that in my notes as well. And so she's been interviewed on a lot of news cable shows. So not even 24 hours after the announcement, she was interviewed by Ari Milber. And the conversation of women of color came up. And in a statement, she stated that, of course, you saw in Georgia what Black women have done, but Latino women were the real heroines here, beating men in turnout in every state and voting Biden-Harris at an average rate close to 3-1. And that wasn't a surprise to us. The backlash was very swift, okay? Mm-hmm. Because the Black community was just over it. I mean, because here are some facts before we get it further into this.
Hit them with it.
Exit polls found that 90% of Black women voted for the president-elect nationwide compared to Latinas, collective 69%. And so the reason why the backlash was so swift and so hard was because Black women are tired of being stepped over to prop other people up. I mean, I'm going to go out there to our white listeners. I don't know if you know about this, but colorism runs rampant in cultures that have melanin in them, right? Pretty much the closer to whiteness, the better off you are, quote unquote. And then the further you are, you're looked down upon. And the reason why there were such visceral reactions towards her comments was because, again, she was not the first Latina actress to say something like this. And then, the history of colorism in the Latin community is well known. And Black women worked so hard in this election, we couldn't even celebrate 24 hours before somebody stepped on it. It's like, you will not steal our joy today, okay? I will say that the actress has come back. Well, first of all, her written statement was trash, but she made another on-air appearance with the wonderful Joy Reid. And she said the following: in my effort to celebrate Latina turnout, I diminished the importance of the Black women's vote in this election, and what I said was wrong. She said, it is a fact that African American women showed up in record numbers and brought us to victory. They saved this country, and I acknowledge the harm that my words caused. If we've learned anything from this administration, is that words matter, so I take full responsibility for that mistake. So what I will say is this, Ashley, she almost lost one. And what I meant was me as a fan, okay?
Right. Mm-hmm,
but I will say with this apology, because the written one was not okay, in my opinion. Because in her written statement, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but she essentially said, I'm sorry you perceived my words that, like a half-ass apology that no one ever appreciates.
Like one of those people who say, oh, I'm sorry if I offended you. I'm sorry if you felt some type of way about what I said.
It's not my fault that you felt that way. You perceived my words in that way. So, with this new interview with Joy Reid, again, perfect imagery, right? You are at the first Black woman primetime cable television host show. She said the right things.
And then going back onto the network that you had the fumble on makes sense, right?
Exactly.
MSNBC.
That, you know, she's on probation. She might not even be on probation, but I was giving her the side eye real quick. So what are your thoughts? Like, what are the lessons learned in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, you said all the things. I think you beautifully
shut up and dribble. I mean,
no. We definitely are not going to go with that sentiment whatsoever. Everybody has a right to speak their mind. I personally, when I first saw this, was just really confused because I have known Eva Longoria lately to be very active and to really be trying to make a difference in terms of the election. And I think
a true ally.
Yeah, and while it's great that she was in that moment seemingly trying to prop up, Latinas and the Latinx community, I think she did misspeak, and I think that it was great that she did formally actually come out and say something, because while in her thoughts may have been kind of misperceived, or she just didn't get them out in a way that did not come across, because even when I read it a couple of times, I was like, I think just the fact that you immediately said it after speaking about Black women and speaking about Black women in Georgia, those dots, there's just no other way to connect those dots, right? And it's a moment where, we have Kamala that we are deeply celebrating, and as well as just the victory as a whole in the Black community. So, it was just an unfortunate situation for her. You had celebrities like Kerry Washington who came out and spoke on her behalf.
She tried.
Yeah.
I love Kerry, but Kerry, it was like, this wasn't it. This wasn't enough.
I think what it showed, though, is that, again, Eva Longoria is not somebody who has had a history of doing things that were problematic, or that,
Rodriguez.
that this hopefully was not going to be a moment she was going to get canceled. So, I do appreciate the apology. I accept the apology. And I think the lessons from this, again, is that you always have to kind of be careful when you're on a public platform about, as you always like to say, being immaculate with your words, right? Like you have to, and that could have been a day where she was doing multiple interviews. You have no idea, but that's not really an excuse. You have a public platform. You're a celebrity. You have to be very mindful. As she said, this administration has taught us nothing. It is that words absolutely matter. And with the platform she's on, it's very easy to get canceled these days because we're in cancel culture. So, Eva, I'm still a fan. I appreciate the apology, and I will be able to move forward from this.
Absolutely. And it just seems completely unnecessary when Ari did an absolutely wonderful job, and he just simply said women of color, right?
Yeah, he teed it up.
Yes, he did. And but what was shady, though, was how quickly MSNBC put that clip on Twitter. Shady.
Hey,
we see you.
They knew what they were doing that day. They said, "Up, clickbait right here. Let's go." Got a gym.
Let's go into our second hot topic this week. Larsa Pippen. Larsa Pippen broke her months-long silence since all of the Kardashians unfollowed her on social media. There was a lot of speculation on what happened. It was done so discreetly. People didn't really notice until you verified, oh, Larsa's not hanging out. She obviously wasn't at Kimberly's 40th. And again, all of the sisters unfollowed her. So she did this interview with Hollywood Raw podcast. And it was a very informative interview. She talked about how she felt like Kanye brainwashed the sisters in thinking that she was no good for the group anymore. She talked about how Kanye even had her number and would call her at all hours of the night when he needed someone to talk to, and that she eventually had to block him because she couldn't handle it anymore. But the hottest tea that she poured in that interview was about Khloe's baby daddy, third trimester, Tristan Thompson. I'm sorry.
Tristan Trash Bag Thompson is what I call him.
And she revealed that she brought him to the Kardashian clan. She was seeing him, and that she took him to Kim's party, and not even a week, she said a week to 10 days later, Khloe had her claws in him.
Yeah.
Ashley.
Yeah.
We need to discuss this. Go ahead.
On the mic, because we did already discuss this off mic. So this is for the people. So, this messiness with the Kardashians and men and friendships has just hit another low for me.
Girl.
Because you have yet another best friend in the circle who supposedly was potentially smashing somebody else's baby daddy before he became your baby daddy. And I'm like, listen, it's a little too much for me. It's a little too much for me. I don't know how y'all trust any of the frienships that y'all have. How y'all
What are they based on besides them being cute? Is it you look like us?
Well, didn't Larsa kind of grow up with Kim to a certain extent, like in their friendship?
So no, because you gotta remember Larsa became relevant because her husband's Scottie Pippen. So
right.
my understanding is they just were in the same circles.
Okay.
And I have to admit, she has always looked like the sixth Kardashian sister. She actually looks, I was going to say she looks the most done up compared, but that's not true because Khloe has won that award at this moment in time. But
yeah, with the surgeries.
But Larsa is also the oldest out of all of them, but she apparently is messy. And so that's another thing too. Apparently the Kardashians been having their little birds, Hunger Games reference. Oh no, that's Game of Thrones too, right?
yeah, that was Game of Thrones. Yes, it was. But to your point though, again, I can't remember. So I think I was just thinking of her as being like a part of the little clique that the Paris Hiltons, when all of them got cool. That's kind of what I was thinking. I don't know what stage in their life that was because I follow Kardashians, but not quite that close.
Yeah.
So again, I just feel like it's just another level of mess. Do I think there's probably some truth to the Kanye West aspect of it? Yeah, because Kanye is Kanye, and as we've seen, there's a lot of messiness and issues, even down to the core family members, right? I mean, he was publicly feuding with Kris Jenner on Twitter. So I mean, do I think that there's validity to that? Sure, but again, do I think that it was probably in Larsa's best interest to come out and publicly talk about that. Not if you were probably ever hoping to still be in that circle. And again, if I was friends with them, I would never bring my man around. Let me just say that.
Never. And that's what I was getting to. So Kardashian's team has apparently been dispersed, specifically through E! Online or E! News. And I guess E! News is reporting that sources close to the Kardashian clans think that Larsa is toxic and she's wanting attention. Mm-hmm. And even though Kim has a soft spot for her, you know, that's at this point, because of this interview, that's less likely to happen. I also want to bring up one more thing, and that is Miss Jordan Woods. Because the thing
going
about
back to
Larsa,
another family friend,
right, and Tristan. So apparently, Jordan tweeted, "Make it make sense." And the reason why I thought that was hilarious is the fact that, honestly, Larsa was the one who was ringing the bell that apparently said that Jordan was the one doing something with Tristan. And it's like, she also liked this tweet that said, it says, Jordan, wait, the one that I want to talk about is, so she was projecting her own guilt onto young Jordan. Got it. And so Jordan liked that tweet, and she also liked, Jordan is like the definition of making the best out of a bad situation. And it's like, you know, what they did, I think the thing that really makes me upset more than anything, and we've kind of had this conversation on the side, it's like the Kardashians love to bully people they feel like they can bully, right? And so, you know, everybody from Black China to Amber Rose and then Jordan Woods. I was so grateful that Jordan Woods put her ace on the table, and that was the Smiths, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And she was able
that
to
red
recover.
Table talk.
But, you know, I believe Jordan at this point that it was probably just a kiss, but the way that they used her for that show and ran her out of town, where Larsa, being the one who rang the bell, was the one who brought it. It's too much. It's too messy, Ashley. It's too
so
messy.
It's so messy. Yeah.
And to your point again, if you have a man, don't ever bring him over, because Kylie has done it. Chloe's done it multiple times. And Kendall. I used to think Kendall was my fave, but Kendall is a silent assassin as well.
Ooh, silent assassin. I like that. Killers. Some killers.
I'm thinking about my girl Tinashe, who was so heartbroken.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, but at least that didn't. So one thing about the Kardashians too that gets me is, again, it's very incestuous. It's not like we're talking about people who are even acquaintances. These be your friends' friends, your crew. Like, y'all be smashing the homies. You know what I mean? Like, there's just really there's no honor amongst the crew. It doesn't seem like, you know.
I actually was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Or I could also say these hoes ain't loyal, but
there you go. And again, you know, if you want to lay up with Tristan Trash Bag, then that's what you gonna get, you know.
He takes no responsibility for his actions. Now, I don't know. Maybe COVID opened some things up, but all the excuses he was throwing when he was caught red-handed, wasn't it? It wasn't it at all. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and go into a quick microdose. We're going to say bye. I'm sorry. He's a Backstreet Boy. AJ is no longer on Dancing with Stars.
Oh, sorry.
There's a lot of drama going on in DWTS. I'm going to get this right. But we're not going to go into it. We're just going to say that we're sad to see AJ go, but there's a lot of drama in-house with Carrie Ann's judging. Mm-hmm. There's drama with Chrishell's professional partner. Mm-hmm. And of course, Tyra's job is on the line every Monday. So when we have more time, we'll probably divulge on that more. And I want to do a quick speed round. Just announced today, you hear it first, The Weeknd will be headlining the Super Bowl this year. So I wanted to get that in. Is there anything else you want to say, Ashley?
No, we can go ahead and move right on smooth into this recap.
Yes, we are. The recap again is Emily in Paris, part 2. And apparently, according to Netflix Twitter, you're supposed to pronounce Emily in a French sounding voice, or not in the French accent, I should say. And it's supposed to rhyme. So it's supposed to be like Emily in Paris.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cute, Netflix, but I am still an American. And like I said last week, I didn't take French, but that's very cute though. So back to Emily in Paris, part 2 this week. We're going to do episodes 6 through 10. So just to kind of get us back into the mode of Emily and Paris, Emily did accept a job for a year in Paris. She was living in Chicago. She's had a few bumps in the road, as Delora and I talked about, with kind of getting into the mode of working in Paris with the staff. And then she also kind of found herself potentially in a little love triangle with her neighbor downstairs, Gabrielle. So we left off with that potential hanging in the air in episode 5. So Delora, last week you mentioned that you had only watched episodes 1 through 5. You were going to save 6 through 10 to stay current. Do you have any updated thoughts on Emily in Paris now that you've watched the whole series?
Now that I've seen the whole series.
And this is spoiler alert, people. Spoiler alert.
Oh, so we are going to do spoiler alert.
You have not still watched it. We're getting back into the good stuff. Go ahead, Delora.
I still love the architecture. I will say I have noticed some of her clothing options. Some of them I did not enjoy at all. Like, girl, what are you doing? So I do understand that. But, who was consistent was Mindy, Camille, and even Sylvie was fly. So
them slits. She has some slits, honey.
Yes, queen.
Legs.
I originally rated this show a C+. I was very close to keeping it at C+, but I upgraded it to a B-.
Okay.
And that's because after finishing watching the whole season, I was left with some questions. Like, I'm still interested. Like, I kind of want to see where the story goes from here. Okay. And I'm sure you're going to mention the show has been picked up for another season. So that's brand official, spanking news on that. And yeah, I'm ready to get started to talk about it because, me and her still aren't friends, by the way. Me and Emily.
She still has not gotten you. Okay. Well, yeah, we can dive in a little deeper. I loved how Netflix made that announcement, by the way. It's very cute, where they basically had Sylvie writing a letter to Madeline, her boss in the States.
Oh, and just
kind of saying like, hey, we're going to keep Emily a little bit longer. We like her, but don't tell her that we like her.
Really?
You have to go out and check that out. Oh, it was super cute.
The actress who played Mindy,
Ashley.
Mindy, Ashley, yes, that's her name. Pop Bottles. I saw that. And so I'm going to have to look and see it because they do a great job rolling out, shows that they're going to add seasons to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was very cute. So let's go ahead and dive straight into episode 6, which is called Ringard, aka Basic. So just a little summary of this episode. So Emily is stumbling a little bit at work in this episode when an iconic designer that Savoir wants to work with, Pierre Cardot, is offended by Emily's style, particularly this charm on her purse that she had when she went to visit. And he basically called her basic, as you've called her, Delora, multiple times since we've started our chats.
I felt so validated in that statement.
Pierre was right with you. And so she inevitably tracks him down at the ballet of Swan Lake and they bond over Gossip Girl of all things. Dan, I love the line about, can't believe we got to the end and it was Dan. Anyway, she also fills her time this episode, Laura, with a new love interest. So that's really where I want to start in terms of our highlights of this episode. What did you think of this new and her first single and available love interest, Toma, this philosophy professor?
I thought their meet cute was adorable. I definitely wrote down hi guy at restaurant. Because he was so smooth. He had game. I'll give it to him, and she fell for it real quick.
Girl.
I liked him. You know, he was great one-on-one. It's when he started interacting with other people. And I guess we had signals of his behavior when he was like, I like to, before I sleep with a girl, look at her bookshelves. Like,
so it was kind of like, is he an asshole, or is he, you know, just a little more sophisticated than maybe
highbrow
she's used to? But I mean, to me, it really came down to the fact that he was an asshole, right? And I think that was very much validated at the Swan Lake Ballet, and kind of the way he talked to Emily, and even her flicking him off, he still had to say, well, actually, that's a gesture. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, even that you couldn't just let go.
He had to have the last word.
Obviously, we see this causes some tension with Gabrielle, and I was like, is he just jealous, or does he have validity behind feeling some type of way about this guy? I wrote down a bit of both, because I think it really was a bit of both, right?
Absolutely both.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I love the new French term, petite moons. Little deaths.
I wrote that down too. I said the French really call orgasms little deaths, right?
I'm so here for it. I love it.
I just love Camille's description of that and why they use that phrasing. I was like, ooh, that's so erotic. But anyway.
It is. And you know, I've heard it before. And so when she said it, I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, girl. It was just another thing, again, that's supposed to speak to kind of that embrace of sexuality in the French culture that I enjoyed it. And obviously Emily wasted no time getting going with her sexual relationship with him. So that was also interesting. And something I want to talk to as we get a little bit further. But one other highlight I had from this episode was Mindy is a singer, Delora.
Yeah.
We find out another reason why she left China was she went on Chinese version of Idol, which they call Pop Star. She ended up unfortunately choking in front of, she said, not millions, but billions of people.
It's a lot of people.
Billions. So what did you think about this new angle on our girl Mindy and kind of her journey?
I just love it. It you know, gave her so much more color. Like I just, again, the show could have been about Mindy, and I would have been Mindy in Paris, okay? And I would have been 100% there for it. I loved it, and I loved how, like, the thing about Darren Star shows, they like to really go for the jokes, and when they made her into a meme, I just thought that was the perfect and hilarious. I loved having that aspect about her revealed at that moment in time.
Yeah, I thought her singing in the park was a little cheesy, but at the same time, I loved it. I was here for it. I was like, go ahead, Mindy, do your thing, girl. You know, because at this point, you know, I still didn't know where we were going to go with Mindy's character. So I love that you kind of got, you know, more layers to her as we went on in the series. So those are the highlights I have for this episode. Do you have any others before I move on to episode 7?
What do you think about him not wanting to bath after spending the night with her?
I agree with Mindy. Like that was a little hot, but at the same time, strange, right? It was like, weird. You know, when she said the thing about the PBO, I was like, that's probably very valid, right? Like it may seem cute, but like, how often do you shower then, sir? Like I need a little bit more detail, because I'm very much, I need people to be cleanly. Like I can't deal with bad personal hygiene. So let me find out you don't shower regularly, then we have a problem, you know? Basically. Yeah. Okay. You good? You want to move on to episode 7? All right. So episode 7, called French Ending. This episode, Emily is really excited about this American actress who was coming to town to host a Savoir client party. And basically she ends up babysitting her. does not go as Emily had anticipated. She ends up being quite a handful, including running off with the client's €2 million watch, Delora.
Yes.
So some of the highlights that I have for this episode is, at this point, I had started liking Emily's style a little bit more, but that bucket hat, Delora, that bucket hat. Why? Help me understand. Like, to the point where the American actress Brooklyn was calling her bucket hat.
Yeah.
Ma'am, that became your nickname.
At this point, I really appreciated her from a career perspective, like how, brilliant her idea was to cross promote with having
synergy.
Yes, Kiera's dress while they're promoting this watch. That was perfect. And little Brooklyn was ratchet as far as I was concerned.
Girl, came in hot.
No home training. Like, I mean, I'm sure obviously it's playing up child stars and how they're just, potentially awful people and seeking to be treated like an adult in all things. But she was a little bit too much for me at all.
Well, it's funny too, because again, we talk a lot about how there was potentially like a lot of stereotyping in this. Brooklyn was very much a stereotype of, I think, what a lot of people think an American actress is really going to be like. If you got to know her, kind of spoiled, entitled, wild, because she was seemingly very wild, and all the things.
I.e. that Instagram post that went out at the end of the episode.
Yeah,
but
it was cute though. I did like that.
It was cute. It was very cute. But I was also validated in this episode with the whole European version of ending stories versus the American ending of stories. I wrote
that down too. You can never escape life, is what Luke said.
Yes, yes, and not happy endings. And so I just thought that was really funny, because we've had this conversation before, especially during our conversation of normal people. It's the American side of me wanted them to be together and live happily ever after. Yep. What actually happened is what quote unquote happen in life, right?
Yes.
So, them going their separate ways and not really knowing what the future may hold, right?
Yeah. They talked about it like twice too, right? Because it was like Luke and Julian talked about it for a minute at the office. And then you also had Sylvie, who kind of talked about it after the party of like, I don't want to give 100% of myself to anybody. I don't want them to give that to me. That version you have, that fairy tale you have of love, that's American, girl. That's not reality. We don't do that. So I had that written down too, because I think, again, a great contrast in culture. A couple other things I want to talk about from this episode was, speaking of Sylvie, that St. Bart trip with Antoine. Ooh, that was a little brutal. His wife kind of, I feel like she intentionally foiled it. Now, what were your feel like? I was like, that was intentional, ma'am. You did not just accidentally see and then not know.
So for me, I think for me, when I watched it both times, I was under the assumption that she thought it was for her. I don't think she knew that trip was going to be for Sylvie. Again, she probably was like, I have a wealthy husband. Oh my goodness, he's planning a trip for us. So the fact that, for her to have permission to be his mistress, I don't know. Obviously, wife gets dibs, right? First dibs. So
because again, it's unspoken. It's unspoken. It's like, I'm in the periphery of my mind. This is fine, but when it comes down to how I choose to handle things, always remember that I am number one. Never forget your place.
The wife.
Yes. Period. Never forget. Yeah. And I feel like there was undercurrents of that, because like I feel like I could feel it in like the social exchange that they had when they first got to the party. Like I feel like his wife was giving me undercurrents of it.
Even with Sylvie's behavior, she's very, like, she floats and acts very nonchalant, because I think, like you mentioned, that current of I'm number one and you will always be number two.
Yes, honey.
Remains. You know what I mean?
Don't get it twisted. So speaking of, again, Love Live, let's move over to my last highlight of this episode, which is Gabrielle, honey. So Gabrielle was offered an opportunity to buy the restaurant he works at, but he can't afford it and doesn't want to hand out from Kami's family. Did you feel like he was being stubborn in this moment, or do you feel like he was sticking up for the fact that I want to earn everything I get?
So I did feel conflicted on what he should do, because I'm very particular about money and where it comes from. And I do not believe in giving large sums of money to boyfriends and girlfriends. So in some ways, and that would be receiving it as well. So in some ways I agree with his position. Like, I don't want to be owned by your family. You know what I mean? Like, if if this relationship evolves into a marriage, I want to come with my 2 feet, you know what I mean? Like the things that I've made with my own hands, and not, feel owned. And again, we don't know her parents or anything like that at this point.
Yes, exactly.
And so we don't know what type of people they are. But again, it's just so much easier to have Thanksgiving dinner with family when there isn't money involved.
Yeah, without that on your back of like, I owe you something or I'm indebted to you. So let's say this relationship goes sideways. Yeah. Is there a payment plan that I have to get on to pay y'all back, Because that would be a slice of change.
Girl, a big one. But I will say with Kami, I do understand what it's like to be the girlfriend, to encourage your boyfriend or your significant other to, be a little bit more ambitious. You know what I mean? Like, spread your wings. This is just a business transaction. If you, got a timeline, we could get this going. We could do this now. Right. So, I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was going to say my only thing with Kami's approach, right, is I guess I saw it as singularly minded, because I think that while you may feel that, this is a great opportunity, don't look to your family just because that's your family as his only source to potentially have financial backing. Like, you should, as a person who is involved in this art gallery world, and like she helped Emily in previous episodes with kind of the hotelier guy, like, you could possibly find some other resources to help him that he would not feel like are coming directly from your family. So to your point, I think it came absolutely from a place of love. But in that moment too, I was like, well, maybe he doesn't want to take money from your family, but maybe y'all can talk about some other options, because it seems like, there are some great connections that she has in Paris. So, I thought there was just potentially more to discuss than just to shut it down. But again, for the sake of the show, this is where we're at. And then the last thing with Gabrielle and Emily is, yet again, in this episode, they bond and they kiss Delora. And this is now with Emily being friends with Kami and knowing what's happening, right? Gabrielle came to this party. She was relying on him to kind of help her with some of the awkward situations she found herself in. And then at that party, when they kind of went off to go find Brooklyn, they kissed again. Now, I told you before, I kind of felt some type of way once she became friends with Kami about trying to continue to pursue anything with Gabrielle. I was upset. I didn't feel like this was right. What did you think? What did you think?
So I wrote this in my notes. For Emily to be so basic, she sure is messy. I just do not understand how she... I don't get her angle. Like, you know what I mean? Because again, I think this is why Emily and I could not be friends, is because I don't know where you're coming from. Like, is there thought? Like, I don't understand. Like,
she's so contradictory in certain regards too. And again, I want to get into that a little bit in terms of like, especially her sexuality, because in parts of this series, you'll see she will hop into bed with Thomas after knowing him for an hour, but she acts so strange about Brooklyn needing to masturbate after a long flight. Like, you choose your moments to be sexually open or to be kind of prudish. And I'm just trying to get a gauge for where we're falling. Like, why is it that when it comes to your sexuality, it seems like you're a little more open with taking those risks, but you're averse kind of to other parts of people doing those things as well. Like, I don't know. I found it a weird contradiction.
I felt that wholeheartedly, because in some ways, again, I don't know if I fully understand Emily, because I feel like towards the end of the series, I feel like there was more of a footing on where the characters stood, you know, with Sylvie and then the guys at the office, and then Mindy. But I just felt like, you know, what motivates her? Like you're saying, it's like, oh, you're surprised that they have an existing arrangement, but you're openly befriending a girl that you obviously have serious attractions to, and you're acting like, oh, nothing's wrong. She's a dear friend of mine. Like, what?
And Kami is so sweet. So if you didn't have any other highlights, I wanted to move into episode 8.
Absolutely.
Where we focus even more on
this triangle.
Yes. So in episode 8, called Family Affair, Emily, because of the kiss with Gabrielle last episode, is actively trying to avoid him and Kami, but instead of being able to avoid them, she ends up going for the weekend, Laura, to Kami's family chateau to kind of vet and pitch their business, which is a champagne house, aka kind of a vineyard, as a potential client for Savoir. So yet again, we see Emily being immersed in kind of this love triangle now. She's rapidly, unfortunately, you know, taking some steps on her own to continue to be involved in. And it kind of leads to a place where we don't know if her and Gabrielle are going to fool around on this trip together. Yeah. We don't know. We don't know. Intense. Yeah, we don't know, you know, if they're going to have a conversation to kind of talk out their feelings at this point, but it seems like there's a lot of avoiding that goes on. So a part of that avoidance is Emily ends up having sex with Kami's 17-year-old brother.
Oh, girl.
And I wrote in quotes accidentally, because she was thinking, Kami kind of pitches when they first get there, well, I have this brother I want you to meet and I want you to set up with.
He's in college.
She didn't know that Kami had 2 brothers. So the one she encounters is a 17-year-old, and the next day finds out that he's only 17 years old. Thoughts?
So I'm going to start with Timothy really quick. He didn't look 17, to be fair, right? And I think that's because the way they positioned him in the show, we were fooled along with Emily, right?
Exactly.
I will say that sex scene was absolutely awkward. And it made so much more sense when you realize that he was a young man. Okay.
Yes.
But
the coaching. Slow down, baby. Slow down.
My question to you is this, Ashley.
Yeah.
Is Kami truly this clueless? You didn't mention, and that's because you gave the summary, but let me go into detail. On this road trip to her family chateau, she only had a 2-seat car, and it was supposed to only be a girls' trip, but then, of course, Gabrielle shows up. And Emily is sitting on his lap for the whole time. Yep. It's like, you don't feel this heat coming from these two, the stolen glances. Like, I cannot deal with it. Like, I know Kami is, and mind you, she's gorgeous in her own right. She and is. You know, why does a bad bitch need to worry, right? Like, but
I think it's just supposed to show that she's so oblivious and so trusting of probably both Gabrielle and of Emily. At this point, we actually don't know how long her and Gabrielle have been dating. They honestly never speak to that, but you get the sense that obviously they're serious. When he comes to the family chateau, he's been there many times. He knows the family. Exactly. Yes. So I think it's just supposed to be one of those things where it's like, I have so much trust in my relationship, which is the hope, right? You hope that you feel like your relationship is so solid, you don't have to worry. But was it awkward for us as audience? Yes, because we know what's really going on. And would I let any chick sit on my man's lap? No.
I don't care who it is. And so my other question is this: what is Gabrielle's goal? Like, you know, to keep flirting until what? And I also put, men play too many games. And then at one point he did say, oh, we can be friends. What type of friends do you have?
Yeah, I mean, it's so obvious. Again, when I talked about before that there seemed to be a lot of avoidance in this, that was really more so on Emily's part because Gabrielle kept trying to get Emily to talk to him. He wanted her to go to the market with him, even though he knows that this. So to your point, what is his end goal? I don't know if he's thinking that far ahead, Delora. Not to make this a man. What's going on in men's heads type thing, but I just don't even think he's thinking it through. I don't think he's thinking about the consequences. I think he's thinking, hey, I like Emily, and there's not, there's nothing I can do about that. Might as well not fight this attraction all that hard, and let's see what happens. That's the way I see it.
If she had gone to that grocery store on that beautiful scenic bike ride, they would have kissed.
They would have done something.
They would have done something, and there's no denying it. Again, so
the way Emily getting down at this point, it may have been more than a little kiss. That's all I have to say.
At this rate, and that's why I feel like she immersed herself into the closest available young man.
Yes, that's why I said he was definitely a distraction. But speaking of that, what did you think of the reaction of his mother to the fact that she was not upset? She took Emily. She said, "Emily, come chat with me." She wanted to know how her son's sexual performance was after this potentially, popping to his cherry. This may have been him getting his virginity taken. It seemed like it was.
It is unclear though. But yeah, the question was my son a good lover? I will say, I know my mama and my grandmama would not be having these conversations, okay?
Mine either.
Girl, I wouldn't even be okay with that. I mean, I don't know. Now, that is a cultural difference that I don't know if it's true or not, assuming that it is. I would like to know more about it. I will say when I was in college, one of my favorite classes was anthropology. People do different things around this globe of ours, okay? And, they have their reasons for it, okay? All I know is the way I was raised.
And she made a good point where she said, listen, I worry about my children's future. I mean, I don't think, so let me caveat and say, the way she did it to me was not creepy. I mean, it was awkward as hell.
Yes.
But it was not, she didn't position it in such a creepy way. It was more so just
it wasn't like she was pimping out her son.
No, I just need to know, is he going to be a good husband for someone someday? It's kind of the way that I, saw her kind of rationalizing in her head. Still weird. And again, we talk about the dad. When she meets dad, he's butt naked. Yes. And he seems very free-flowing. I'm like, this is kind of just a more free-flowing household.
Whereas, in our culture, we we talked about this before, they ingrain virginity like no other. So it's like, and then,
especially for women, right?
Especially for women, that level of openness is just completely unknown to me. So I don't know.
Girl. The mom took it to another level for sure. One last highlight / insight I had for this episode was just, we were just talking about Emily's motivations. One thing I love was the conversation between her and Timothy before they got down, where she kind of talked about another reason behind why she took the opportunity in Paris. She said when she was in Chicago in her life before, she felt like everything was laid out for her. There were no decisions to make, even wrong ones. And I thought that was so valuable in terms of getting a better understanding for Emily's mindset and possibly why she does get into some of the messiness that she's getting into to this point. Because it's like maybe she just felt like, her life had always been, she'd always kind of played it safe. So this is her opportunity to live a La Vida Loca a little bit.
Interesting. What's is it C'est la vie?
Yeah. Say like that's life. All right. Well, on that note, let's move on to episode 9, Delora, an American. You have one more thing?
Last thing.
Okay,
yes.
hit me with
Mindy and her friends.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I had that as a highlight. Get into
no
it.
Worries,
Get into
no
it.
Worries.
So sorry. Forgot you, Mindy. My bad.
Before Emily goes on the family trip, she meets Mindy's friends from China, and they're all wealthy and they're having a great time in Paris. And one particular moment at the club was they ordered a bottle of champagne and they sprayed it all over each other.
Yeah.
And and Emily was like, isn't champagne expensive? She's like, oh yeah, it's not a problem.
I said, I wrote in my notes some crazy rich Asians-ish.
Ashley, you took the words right out of my mouth. I literally wrote, Mindy's friends are giving crazy rich Asian vibes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I loved about this too was, again, the insight into Mindy's life, to know, like, Mindy thought that her friends did not know this life she was living. They didn't know she was a nanny, but they really did. And they encouraged her to get back to who she is and what she loves, which was singing. So they paid for her to perform when they went out. Like, it was just
at
such
a really
cute moment.
Impressive place, the Crazy Horse. That's like iconic.
Is it?
Yeah.
See, Delora, look at you with these cultural gems, my Parisian friend.
Okay. One day, I'm telling you, certain things wasn't going to work out. I was like, where my passport going to be working at?
I could not with you. Yeah, girl, as COVID continues. But yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm glad you said that. That was my very first highlight, and I skipped over it, getting into the sex stuff. But yeah, loved this moment with Mindy, and again, just solidifies, you know,
they weren't as shallow as she thought they were.
No, and just that she, you know, I think some of the things that probably she has feared, or maybe reasons that's kept her from going back home, are not, you know, as valid as she thought they were. So I'm really, you know, we talk about excitement for season 2. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with Mindy in season 2. But now let's move on to episode 9, An American Auction in Paris. So just a quick summary of this episode. Emily is asked to get a Pierre Cardin dress, the designer we talked about before, for a charity auction by the American Friends of the Louvre. And it's subsequently bought and destroyed, Delora, by a pair of new school avant-garde designers called Gray Space. So my very first highlight for this episode is, I love that damn Pierre dress that got destroyed. I loved it.
Was gorgeous.
Oh my goodness.
So funny. I guess they kind of played into the French ending with that, because like every typical rom-com, you know, you have things that are planned. So they had a young lady that was supposed to wear the dress and she wasn't available. Oh my God, who's gonna wear it? Emily. It's a perfect fit. So of course it was gorgeous, and she wore it, and everybody, you know, had the collective gasp.
Oh, it was so
and
beautiful.
Then for them to destroy it, I laughed. I did laugh at that part, because I was just like, this was not how everyone imagined it at all.
At all. And then to see Pierre's face, it was just like, oh. But
he was already temperamental to begin with. So
he's an artist, and he's sensitive about his shit. Okay. So as a part of that, though, the reason why Emily got to wear that dress is because, yet again, another man is falling for Miss Emily, which is Matthew Cardin, who is the nephew of Pierre and heir apparent to this fashion house. So I wrote down, Delora, does every straight man she encounters like her?
Girl, I have a whole rant at the end of this. At the end of this, because I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. And that's me being nice. I don't get it.
I mean, she's been at this point approached by the guy who showed her rental space, her neighbor, the cute philosophy professor at the cafe. 3. You got beautifully rich Matthew, because when we get to the point where he picks her up in the middle of the day on a boat.
Yes, 4. Honey. Don't forget the hot nose. That's the name I gave him. Antoine.
The hot nose. Oh, how could I possibly forget Antoine? I mean, it's just been a lot.
And Timothy, the 17-year-old.
Oh,
so 6 men.
Right. I forgot about little Timothy that fast, because he's not a man, so I put him.
I don't get it. I don't get it, Ashley, because I don't get it. Because you know, in shows, you love a good triangle, right? And so in some ways, our triangle is, you know, Gabrielle, Emily, and then Camille. I'm just gonna spoil it just a little bit. By the end, it's like 3 men and her. I'm like, what is that? That's not a love triangle. That's a square. Like, I don't understand. What are we doing here?
And I don't even, what's the shapes after that? Because again, I'm just curious. Like, how far are we going to take this, right? I think it's one thing I think part of it was them trying to, again, show the difference between the openness and sexuality between the Americans and the French. But at the same time, every straight man, literally, that she encounters, even Luke at the office would have hit, likes her. And it's just, it's so, it's very, very interesting to consider as far as our show history goes, but we can delve a little bit deeper into that another day. Back to the highlights of this episode. Antoine, remember, he was supposed to take Sylvia on that trip.
Yep.
He's trying to woo her back this episode. So he sending her gifts. He's trying to get her on the phone, all this stuff. Girl, he sent her some nipple piercings.
Yeah.
As a gift to the office. And yet again, this is what I'm saying about Emily seeming like a prude at times. She's like, but no, that's really for her ears, right? Like, ma'am.
Yeah. Like, are you naive or are you not? Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And that actually made me think about, the Sex and the City thing. Like, is he really trying to recreate Sex and the City with one person? Because that's doing a lot for me right now.
You mean she's like every character? She has her, she has her Samantha moments. Then all of a sudden she go all the way over to Charlotte. And she's like, oh my God, how could you possibly have your nipples pierced, Sylvie? Like, it's just interesting. And then as a part of that, we've talked about kind of the ageism dynamic, it seems like, between Sylvie and Emily a little bit, but this also comes into play this episode because they have it in the fashion world between Pierre and the gray space designers, right? Where it's like Pierre is this old school, kind of outdated fashion designer, and gray space is the new school kids who are coming in and shaking it up.
And, the cool marketing ploys and everything.
Yeah, they also make it about performance art and not just about the fashion itself, right? That was supposed to be the whole thing with destroying the dress, all of that. So those are my highlights. Any other highlights you have for episode 9?
Just what she decides to do with the champagne. So Camille's family is looking for a marketer because they need to pick up sales, and obviously they're niche enough for the marketing firm to pick them up as a client. But before her trip, she wasn't really able to answer any of her coworkers' questions of, what are we going to do with the champagne? And so ultimately they decided, or she decided to promote the champagne as cheap bottles of champagne for showers and celebrations and things like that.
Yeah,
so
champagne, I believe they called it. Again, we talked about a little bit last time about her ideas and like the validity of them. I think again that to this point, my favorite idea she had was the scent in the hotel. I really love that idea. This one, I was like, I mean, it's cool. I think it probably would sell, but go ahead.
And I do have one more thing I wanted to highlight from this episode. We got a chance to get a little bit more insight of or backstory for Emily. She took the time during a midnight stroll with Matthew after the gallery to tell him that how basic her life truly is. I'm just joking.
Well, no, because we talked about, has she ever even left the country? She didn't get on her first plane until she was 12.
That's what I was saying. Like she grew up local. Her family grew up in that same neighborhood. She said she wasn't wasn't able. Her first plane ride was at the age of 12, and then her first international trip was now. So, and I'm saying that partially, to be mean and funny. But, I mean, I didn't take my first international trip until, I was not like young traveling the world by any means, but.
Oh, no, I was 30 strong. So, was I on planes before 12? Yes. But again, I do appreciate, more and more insight that we get onto the background of these characters for sure. So if you're ready, we'll move on to our last episode of season 1, Cancel Couture. Cancel Couture. So my summary for this episode is, with Pierre spiraling after this gray space debacle and initially canceling his fashion week show. This is Paris Fashion Week, kids. His Fashion Week show. Emily scrambles to not only help Pierre, but also to hold on to her job. Because we see in this episode, Sylvie fires her. Like, she legit says, Emily, pack your bags.
Yeah.
Get out of this office. So I guess we can really start there in terms of her career.
Do you think that was too much?
Honestly, for me, it would depend on how much money we would be losing as a company with this particular endeavor. Because that's, again, we've talked about this. We talked about this with the previous first 5 episodes. I don't always know how much of Sylvie's motivation is actual work or is personal. So it seemed like Sylvie was warming up more to Emily over these last 5 episodes. But at this point, it really, for me, is going to come down to 2 things. How much money is Emily really going to lose the company if this does not work out? And also, ma'am, do you have the power to fire Emily? Because Emily does not actually work for you. She works in Chicago for Madeline. So those were the 2 things I was thinking about. True. And but I was just going to say, this was something I know they mentioned was an account that was like a dream account for Sylvie. So I think that's another reason why she took this personally. But go ahead.
And you got to think about it. She was asking this client to do a favor. So it wasn't necessarily a part of her business. It was an opportunity to give his work exposure, but it wasn't anything like that was, regularly scheduled,
And that's why Sylvie faulted her for it. She's like, this is your fault. You did this. You did this, even though it's for charity. Like, we're just trying to help out some charity. But it's definitely interesting because we've seen the emphasis on Emily's career and how important it is to her and how well she's doing. So you wondered whether or not this was going to kind of unravel her previous experience. Clearly, based on the patterns, it was all going to work out in the end. And it did. Because, Pierre found his new inspiration and he ended up having an impromptu fashion show, took over Grace Space's, outside venue and, really turned it up and did his thing. But it was definitely interesting just to kind of see that career journey that she had over these 10 episodes. A highlight I had from this was going back to Mindy. So Mindy, after that performance, she got offered an MC job at the club you were talking about.
She did.
And subsequently, she gets fired from her nanny job and has to move in with Emily. So it seems like they're building up to a season 2 of we're living together to see how this goes. Right. Would you let one of your friends move in with you after only knowing them for a short period of time, Delora?
You possibly. Anyone else? I don't know. I don't know. How about you?
That's probably a hard no for me. And that I say that with love. I say that from a place of I feel like it's in the best interest of my friendship with people to keep certain things separate, right? Like how you were saying earlier, not mixing money and family. Sometimes it's best not to cohabitate with your friends. I know me, so maybe not. Obviously, if she was in a pinch, she was like, hey, I just need to stay here for a set period of time.
I'm also thinking about it. They're in their early 20s, quote unquote. So I feel like, back in the day, it literally took me turning 30 to realize, oh no, I don't sleep on anybody's couch anymore. I will get a hotel room and I'll see you later. Because guess what? As a grown ass woman, I need my quiet time. Yes, I need to put on my robe. Valid. I need to
pace to a
myself.
Robe. Yes, to a robe. Everybody who really cool with me, y'all know I love my robes. Yes, to a robe. Okay.
Yeah,
that's very valid. The validity of that as far as age is very valid, right? Because as you get older, you do value your peace so much more than you did when you were younger, right?
Yeah,
especially coming from that college environment.
You have FOMO. You want to be in the room where it happens, okay?
Yeah, that's a good point, Delora.
But as a grown person, it'd be like, y'all did that last night? Okay, what time we doing brunch?
Right.
It's okay.
That's valid. I am speaking with my 30-something-year-old mind. 20-something-year-old Ashley probably would have been even harsher though with my words, but I'll just say that, you never know. Maybe there would have been a little more.
I'm not going to peer pressure you on whether or not.
I know. Again, if it was in a pinch, if there was an expiration date on it, I think we could talk.
Right. Insight.
Yeah, like, girl, how long you staying her?
Because how much the Crazy Horse really pay?
Exactly. And she only working so many nights, right? It's not like this is a full-time job. But anyway, I already kind of talked to the whole fact that Matthew kind of picks her up in the middle of the day on that boat with wine. I said, yes, please, can I get me a man who
and she also looked up his past relationships, and he likes to date high-profile women.
Girl, this was a Sex and the City reference for me, because you remember at the end when Carrie was dating the one artist before she got back with Big, that was kind of his MO, right? Like he was well-known, renowned, had dated a lot of very beautiful, high-profile women. Like that was a nod to that in my mind when I was watching that episode. Antoine's wife in this episode also approaches Emily and basically says she would approve of her being his new mistress.
What?
How you feel about that? How are we feeling about that?
Oh my gosh. Girl, I don't even know. I would have been like, ma'am, what?
Yeah.
And she's like, professionally, she's like, yeah, whatever you want to call it. Sis, what?
Yes.
Like, now, again, he's not a bad one either, but
no, he's definitely a good-looking man. He is definitely a good-looking man. There's no doubt about that. I don't want to be a part of this. There's no doubt about that.
But yeah, I was really shocked by that. I felt like I also was not surprised by it though, because I feel like they were setting this up since the party when she tried on his perfume. Like they obviously have something going on between them too. So
I would agree. And I also think that it's interesting because again, the wife is supposed to be friends with Sylvie. I think there's more history to that relationship than we've seen, right? That the wife is kind of fed up with whatever the dynamic is.
And can we really talk about friends?
Girl, Larsa Pippen. We Larsa Pippen in this show. Going back.
I feel like, some of these chicks out here be frenemies. You know what I mean? I don't do frenemies personally. I don't do them, but there's a lot of women in girlfriend relationships like that. Yeah. So in some ways, honestly, if we want to put his wife in the frenemy category, she absolutely mean girled Sylvia out of that trip.
I'm telling you, she knew what she was doing. Okay? She knew what she was doing. And then
Sylvie, knowing that she does not have any power, just sulked about it. And then, obviously the power that she has is rejecting him or whatever. But what actually came about it? Like they did reconcile, didn't they?
Sylvie and Antoine?
Yeah.
I feel like we were kind of left with the impression that is still going to be around, that relationship is still going to exist. It wasn't as clear though. Yeah, right? It was not. Yeah, it was not cut as like, oh no, I'm done with him, or vice versa, or anything like that. Again, you just get the sense that whatever the dynamic is, the wife's over it. And there's potential that she's trying to get Sylvie kind of out of the picture. So to wrap this episode up, Delora, let's talk about the love triangle, the main love triangle again.
Well, can we talk about Gabrielle just a little bit? He's on his way to Normandy.
Yeah, so that was a part of it. Go ahead.
And he was having essentially his last supper, and this was also at the end of the fashion show, the successful fashion show. And like you mentioned, this is where the wife gave Emily the approval, and Emily is making plans with Matthew, the nephew, to go to, what is it? Saint-Tropez.
Yes.
And so she's occupied with that, and saying her goodbyes to Gabrielle was pretty much a quick, good luck.
Yeah, you could say there was lingering glances. So what I was kind of going to say is that at this point in the episode that you're mentioning, Gabrielle has been offered the opportunity to buy a restaurant that he can't afford back in his hometown in Normandy. So he said, I'm going to take this opportunity, right? So Camille and him break up. He is looking to have his last, time working and providing at the restaurant, which is, the Last Supper with Emily and Sylvie and that whole crew.
Do European people not do long distance relationships? I'm just wondering.
I mean, so one thing that I think about this too, about the Kami and Gabrielle situation, is that there's a finality to it that was already coming, right? Like if their relationship had been seemingly in a good place, I think maybe they would have tried it, or maybe, but it just felt like things were coming to a head with their relationship. So I feel like it was almost seemingly running its course already based on everything else. Gabrielle's obviously entertaining Emily. You have Camille, who seems like she's getting more and more frustrated with Gabrielle, with, you know, him with the rejection of finance, all that. So I think that was one of the reasons why. But to your point, we talked about this multiple times. Why doesn't anyone at least want to try?
Wait. I just looked it up just now. It is a 2-hour, 40-minute drive. That's all.
I
it's
feel
less
like
than 3 hours.
Everything keeps being 2 hours, right? That was the normal people. It was like I was 2 hours from you. We couldn't see each other over the summer. That's a gold number right there. 2 hours.
Weekend trip situation.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
But to your point though, in those lingering glances, it felt unfinished. So what does Emily do? She comes back. She comes back for Gabrielle, and they have good sex, honey. Not just some sex that, oh my God, what just happened? This was incredible type sex. And it seems like they're gonna leave it there, but the series, the first season ends with Antoine saving the day. He was so impressed with Gabrielle.
So impressed.
That he wants to be a financial investor. Yes. He said we cannot lose this amazing chef in Paris. So he becomes a financial backer and investor, and Gabrielle is staying put. And guess who texts Emily immediately at the end? Camille. Gabrielle said he's staying. Can we talk? Dum, 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 dum. Dum. End of season 1. Delora, give me some of your final thoughts on this first season, girl, as we round up our recap.
Yes, first season. It was fine. I enjoyed it in theory. Again, I'm not enjoying Emily right now because I don't get her. Like, I feel like I don't get her character, and therefore I don't trust her. And if I don't trust her, I don't like her. And I'm like, you know, for that type of character, I imagine her needing to be endearing. And she has moments that comes up. But with her decision-making, not understanding her true motives, because she seems all over the place, I'm like, are you out here in these streets or not? Like at the end of the season, she got like 3-4 men. Wait. This is what happens at the end of the season. She kisses Gabrielle, which escalated, you know, to them getting it on. Right. She gets permission from Antoine's wife. And then she's still supposed to be going to Saint-Tropez with Matthew. Yep. So, I mean, how naive is she if she got these type of men on call? Like, I don't understand.
There's a lot of balls in the air, literally. There's a lot of balls in the air. Yeah.
And so I feel like for her to seem so naive or surprised or sheltered, she's very open in that way. And I don't mind her being that open, but like you mentioned, it's like, pick a side. Like, if you are going to be, if you're going to be shady with Camille, be intentional. Don't act like you're her friend, because you're not her friend.
Girl, not at all. Not at all. It started out on a very weak footing, in that you already knew, after you were introduced to her as his girlfriend, you know, you had already made a little bit of a connection, but you should have known then, you know, as we've seen in certain other shows and series, you know, some people, if it's maybe like an ex situation, and that person, like in, let's say, Insecure, when Issa's trying to figure out whether or not she's going to be friends with the next one that's dating her ex, that's one thing. But this is an active relationship, and I just feel like that is the thing that gets me with Emily. I can put aside all the other things about the series that about Emily got to me, but loyalty is a big factor for me.
Yep.
And you have no loyalty right now. And I know, you know, even with Sex and the City, you know, we had the moment with Carrie where she was having an affair with Big while he was married. But, you know, it never feels good to me when you put somebody in a situation where I can't actively root for this relationship because of the damage that you may be causing somebody else.
Serious damage.
And again, Camille is so sweet. She's so nice. You know, I just don't appreciate it.
Yeah, and my last thing to the point of her being apparently a man eater is I just don't understand why so many men are attracted to her. Is it because
As
she's
we
an
said.
American? Is it because she's an American?
Or maybe it's just because we're watching through the lens of her eyes. You know, it's supposed, because she's the center of attention in this show. Maybe it's supposed to again be an alluding to French culture that, you know, maybe they hit on everybody kind of like this. Maybe they be trying a lot of people like this. We don't know. We're only seeing it through Emily's lens and Emily's eyes. But again, I'm not going to change my rating. I know you kind of improved yours to a B minus. Mine is staying a B. I really enjoyed season 1 with all the messiness that it entails. I look forward to season 2, especially seeing what we do with Miss Mindy's character and kind of seeing, you know, as we said with the criticism earlier in the series, Darren Star is, I think, being much more intentional than people realize with the way that he's evolving Emily. So I think that season 2 is going to be a much bigger embrace of the trueness of probably French culture. So I look forward to peeling back some layers of this onion.
I will say her French gradually got better towards the end, so that was notable. I will give them credit for that.
All right.
Again, you know, B minus. I did it. I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it because, especially once it got messier towards the end, it's like, oh no, what's gonna happen? And so the questions I'm left with is, you know, is she gonna go on the trip? Are we gonna have more time with Mindy now that they're roommates? Does Camille know, you know, or should she tell her? So these are the questions
what's going to be
that
her
I have.
reaction? What's going to be her reaction?
Exactly. Is it going to be surprising? And it's like, oh, well, we were broken up. Or were you eyeing my man the whole time like we do over here in Detroit? And I was like,
oh, wow.
I'm being stupid.
Detroit what? I also think, you know, depending on how long they're able to keep this series going, you know, that's one thing they love to do on all the shows is the will they, won't they forever. So I don't even feel like we're going to get any resolution on this anytime soon, potentially, if there is the possibility of this going on for multiple seasons. So we'll see, girl. But that was really the end of the recap for Emily in Paris, guys. We hope that you enjoyed it. Again, give us your thoughts on what you felt about this show. Any highlights you liked, your rating, your grades. We'll take it all as we move on to our hidden gems of the week.
Hidden gems, yay! So I'll go first. My hidden gem, I only have one this week. It is so random, but I had to watch this over multiple days because it is a 3-hour movie.
Oh.
And it is Fiddler on the Roof. It is currently on Netflix. It's a film from 1971. And as I mentioned, it's a Broadway musical, beloved. I have this thing where I love musicals. I love, you know, the arts, obviously, pop culture and all that. But I'd never seen Fiddler on the Roof. And I knew that there were some cultural references in there that I wanted to know, you know, the origin to, right? And so, again, 3 hours long, very long. It has a whole intermission in the middle too. So I should have counted how long that was. But right away, the opening song is like tradition. Tradition. And I'm like, I've definitely heard that on commercials or
Me
like
too.
just various things. The second thing that was very I was excited to find is the song Matchmaker, Matchmaker, Make Me a Match.
Oh, that's what that's from? You know, I always think of Mrs. Doubtfire when I hear that. I had no idea. Wow.
And the biggest of them all, cultural reference for me anyway, and it's an earworm, okay? There's a song called If I Were a Rich Man. And it's like, if I were a rich man.
I know it's, who knew? That's crazy.
Who knew? And if you're wondering why does that sound so familiar, you can thank the lovely Gwen Stefani for her song, If I Were a Rich Girl. I'll have all the money in the world.
I need to watch Fiddler on the Roof, because I am one who's like, I need to know where stuff comes from. So thank you for that.
And I feel so sometimes I feel so basic when I don't know where the things came from. And so I was telling Dave, my husband, I was like, yo, I was singing that song in high school and I had no idea it was from like this beloved beloved musical, right?
You have to look in those liner notes of the music back when we used to have the books that you got in a CD, right?
Exactly. And and I believe Pharrell was her main producer at the time. If he's not, forgive me, but I'm really impressed when producers actually have that level of depth. You know what I mean? It's like, yes, sir, bust out a musical that's about the Jewish community before the revolution in Russia. Like what? Like
the level of detail.
That's what the musical is about. Jewish families, their everyday lives, and what their lives are like before. I think they said before the revolution in Russia. So they're right outside Kiev, So that's my hidden gem of the week.
Well, thank you for that. That makes me want to watch Fiddler on the Roof. So I'm excited. Is it too soon to talk Christmas, Delora?
Of course not. No.
Okay, because it could go either way, and the reason why I say that,
2020.
That's very true. I'm sure everybody's super excited.
Talked about Christmas at Halloween, as far as I'm concerned.
So it's great that you say that, because my hidden gem of the week, my one, is a Tori Kelly Christmas, which is dropped on October 30th. So hit and miss whether anybody was in the mood yet for these vibes, but. Tori Kelly is an artist that I have loved and have lived for since her YouTube cover days. Mm-hmm. And I love a great Christmas album. This album, again, was dropped on October 30th. It's produced by the one and only Kenneth Babyface Edmonds, honey. 13 tracks.
No remix. Babyface.
Listen. Babyface come all the way through. You have never let me down. Never. It's 13 tracks. A highlight for me on it is track 4, which is A Joy to the World, Joyful mix. And it's the Joyful arrangement from Sister Act 2. And I know all my Black people are like, yes. Yes, I loved it. So, and Babyface does appear on one track, which is Let It Snow, which is track 9. And then she also ended up putting Hallelujah from the Sing soundtrack on there as the last track. So it's just
gorgeous.
I love Tori Kelly. Again, she has such a beautiful angelic voice.
She has the range.
My love of Christmas, because I am a Christmas baby. I definitely am going to put some of these on my already 46 track Christmas playlist. It got me in a great spirit. It got me in a great mood. We're entering holiday season. We're getting over the craziness of this year. I just thought it was a kind of a beautiful one this week for my hidden gem. So that's my hidden gem for this week. Check it out, A Tori Kelly Christmas.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for that.
Of course. That's it, girl. We are done for this week. Listen.
Yes. Oh, hey, everyone listening, please subscribe to our podcast. Please leave any comments. We would love to hear from you, especially on Apple. And then follow us on social media. We are on Twitter and Instagram at recapping, sorry.
You got it. Recapping podcast.
Recapping podcast. The Detroit was coming out of me when I was saying that. You
hitting this Detroit hard, girl. You better represent. You better put on for your city. Okay, yes, do all the things, guys.
At
do all the things.
Recapping podcast. Mm-hmm. So we would love to hear from you.
Yes. Well, Delora, if you can believe it, we are about to get out of here for the day. And it's, as usual, such a pleasure. You have made my week. And
always.
Do you want to share what we're going to recap for next week? Or are we going to keep it as a surprise? Okay.
So we're going to recap 40-Year-Old Version, which is a Netflix original. It's a movie, so feel free to watch it, and we'll be talking about it next week.
Exciting, girl. Until then.
Yes. Talk to you soon.
Bye.